Good afternoon, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. It's another week. It's a Monday. Let's get started. I had a great weekend. I don't know about you. Yeah, and the weekends, if you have a job like this, there are people who just can't get away from it. You can't stop looking at the news. You can't stop checking your feed. Well, you know what? I can set my phone down for a good 36 hours or so. Now, about halfway through Sunday, I got to start checking my phone and getting ready so I don't sound like an idiot when I have to talk to you the next day. But probably the biggest story that's consequential that will have reverberations throughout the rest of the year, we can all agree would be the results of the election over the weekend. And from here's the super short summary. There's only two people left in the race on the Republican side. Donald Trump, Nikki Haley. They went to Nikki Haley's home state. Donald Trump won pretty big. I mean, you probably know that, unless you just started listening to news radio like right this second. But for a little more detail than that, let's go to Ashley Smith-Thomas, CEO of Freedom Funds USA. Welcome to the James Show. So what did we learn about this election that just happened in South Carolina, Ashley?
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you for having me. So on Saturday, the South Carolina primary occurred, in which Trump was expected to win by large margins, and that is exactly what happened. In the showdown between Trump and Nikki Haley, who was the former governor of South Carolina, the people had clearly spoken and chose Trump over Haley in her own home state. So when polls closed, the media outlets, they quickly projected Trump as the winner, and sure enough, that's what took place. According to Associated Press, Trump came in at 59.8% and gained 47 delegates, while Haley came in at 39.5% and gained only 3 delegates. So for a Republican candidate to win the nomination, they need 1,215 delegates, in which Trump has 110 so far, and Haley has 20. So far, Trump has won every primary, such as Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and now South Carolina. Haley, she has vowed to stay in the fight at least through Super Tuesday, which is March 5th. Super Tuesday, there'll be 16 states that'll be casting their votes during their primary, including Texas.
That's us.
Yep, that's definitely us, in which California has 169 delegates and Texas has 161 delegates, which polls are already showing that Trump is expected to really win Texas, California, and these other primary states on Super Tuesday.
Well, I'm all in favor of a robust primary process, but this one's all over. This one's done, right? It's all over but the crying.
Basically. But that's basically what's happening. I mean, the fact that he was able to blow Haley out of the water in her own home state is really projected that the same thing's going to happen here with Super Tuesday. Already polls are showing that these 16 states is going to lean towards Trump. Tomorrow is Michigan. And again, even though there's a little bit of polling coming out regarding Michigan, it's still showing that Trump will most likely obtain the Michigan primary tomorrow. So that in itself, I mean, really, I guess the real question is, what is Nikki Haley's path to victory? Because at this point, it's not clear that she even has one, knowing that Trump is going to be securing Super Tuesday.
Yeah, so I think even Nikki Haley knows there's no chance she could win, but is she angling to get some sort of political appointment or some favor in exchange for dropping out? Is she just continuing because people are funding her campaign, and what the hell else is she going to do? Why is she staying in, Ashley?
I think the reason why she's staying in is because she really believes that she truly is a candidate that is a viable option, because when she lost in South Carolina, she came out in her speech and stated, quote, "I'm not giving up this fight when the majority of Americans disapprove of Donald Trump and Joe Biden," end quote. So I think that she really believes that she's the solution. So I think that's why she's sticking out. She did say that she would hold on through Super Tuesday, which I think is fair. Absolutely, see how she does. But what's going to be telling is, what is she going to do afterward? Because during her speech, she stated that South Carolina spoke, and yes, the people have spoken, but they had spoken that they want Trump. So, but for some reason, she feels like the people want her. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm curious to see how she's going to take it post Super Tuesday. And then also her funding. I mean, just over the weekend, the Koch organization, Americans for Prosperity, pulled their funding from her campaign when they had already spent $32 million and trying to help her defeat Trump. And the fact that she lost in her own home state, the Koch organization decided to halt their funding. So then the question becomes, okay, are other donors going to do the same thing? Are people just going to step back and just kind of watch what she's going to do? But I think it's going to be very telling to see what's going to take place come Super Tuesday. She has to know that she's not going to win during Super Tuesday, but I think that she she just believes with conviction that she's a viable candidate that the American people want, because she believes that it's not Trump and it's not Biden.
Yeah, and I am kind of surprised at how many people say, she needs to get out, and she needs to get out now. Because if I was in her position, I would just hang out just in case something happened to Trump.
Oh, absolutely. And especially with some of these court cases coming up here, I believe it's in the spring, and then we're looking at in the summer. I think she's going to be holding on, particularly once we see what's going on here in these spring court dates. But again, I think it's fair. I think she's doing the right thing staying in through Super Tuesday, because she wants to give people a viable option to be a voice and to make sure that their voice is heard. But it's just, again, going to be telling to see what she does post Super Tuesday. And if Trump's going to blow her out of the water in all these 16 states, I think that should be a clear indicator. And then I guess the real question is, okay, is she going to stay in the fight? There has been rumors that perhaps she would run on the independent ticket. From the standpoint, she stated that she would not support Trump if he is the Republican nominee. I don't know that there would be a political appointment position for her.
Right.
There's just no way, because at this point, she's just not interested in supporting Trump.
What is going on the Democrat side? Is it just tumbleweeds floating through a ghost town?
It's pretty much tumbleweeds. I mean, you don't really hear much of going on other than, Biden, in his policies and what the administration is doing, and he continues to move forward. I do think, though, as the administration continues to get a lot of pressure pertaining to the border, I know that he's going to be visiting the border here soon, which in my opinion, I think it's a little too late. But, when you look at what's taking place, his administration is facing a lot of heat. I mean, when you look at Secretary Austin, the fact that he did not report that he was in the hospital, the DOD is coming out with their assessment of what transpired during that time. You look at what's going on the foreign policy stage, and then, of course, border security, and, again, our economy. I think that this administration is really feeling a lot of the heat from the American people. They're feeling the pressure from Congress, and I think that right now has been the only entertaining part pertaining to the Democrats. Because at this point, with Joe Biden being the incumbent, there really has not been much going on the Democrat side pertaining to the presidency. There's been rumors that come the DNC, which I believe is in August of this year when they do the Democrat National Convention, of potentially there being a switcheroo that it'll be someone else rather than Biden that will be running for president. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right, this is Ashley Smith-Thomas from Freedom's Fund USA. Thank you for taking some time on the James Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ashley. All right, coming up next, we have a couple of news headlines that I'm just going to whip through a few real quick, and then you're going to see these kind of all tie together. There's a self-immolation of a U.S. soldier at the Israeli embassy in D.C. There's the murder by an illegal alien over in Alabama. There's some updates on the poor kid that died, that's the non-binary kid in Oklahoma that passed away, but some reverberations from that, and I'm going to weave all these together coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome. It's The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. So it's the primary season. I love talking about this every 4 years because I really don't know the answer to this question, but what's better, open primaries or closed primaries? They both have advantages and disadvantages. If you have a closed primary, then you don't have to worry about saboteurs from the other party sneaking into your ballot box and picking a candidate that doesn't represent the party or the party's voters or constituency. They could just do it to sabotage the other side. Obvious downside, however, if you have a closed primary and you only allow people who are registered in that party to vote in the primary, well, then you're alienating a whole bunch of independents. You're going to get a very polarized candidate that doesn't appeal to anybody but the hardcore base. And so who's right and who's wrong? I don't know. So let's ask my next guest. This is Victoria Churchill. Victoria, welcome back to the James Show. This isn't your first visit here, but you're from Young Voices. What do you think about the movement to mandate open primaries?
Well, thanks so much for having me back on. I think that any time that you can have more people participate in the Democrat process, I think that strengthens our democratic process. It strengthens people's faith in institutions. And so I think having open primaries would hopefully lead more people to be more engaged with their government and to actually have higher levels of satisfaction with the people that we elect to represent us. You know, our institutions or our faith in government institutions is at pretty much an all-time low, especially the higher up that you get. with the federal government and the presidency, people really don't have a lot of faith that those that are governing are doing so with the best interests of the people in mind.
What's your response to the criticism that having open primaries opens the door also to saboteurs who are going to come in and not vote for your party's best interest, but to vote specifically to cause your party trouble?
Well, I think that even if there are people that do that, I think they're few and far between. And I think that when you look at actual data outside of just kind of anecdotal evidence of, so-and-so actually voted in the wrong party's primary, and I know that because they're a registered voter of the other party in my district or in my precinct, or kind of, I think that's how some of those rumors kind of get started, is from cases like that. But, I was just looking at exit polling that came out of the South Carolina race this weekend, and only about 5% of the voters that showed up there identified as registered Democrats, and about 80% of them, those that voted in the Republican primary, still plan to support whoever the Republican nominee was. And so, even if 40% of them voted for Haley, 80% of the total still plan to vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden if he is the nominee. And so, again, I think even if those people do exist that will try and cross parties to, as you put it, sabotage a potential candidate, again, I don't really think those people have an outsized impact when it comes to the general election.
Right. They exist, but have they really swayed many elections? Not so sure about that one. Well, my next question, Victoria, would be for the people who have the closed primaries. Is there a concern that you get a candidate that's too polarizing to win a general?
So based on my own personal experience, and I've worked in a number of states with a number of different primary structures and really even voter registration structures, I think that people vote in the best interests of their party having somebody that is able to govern. And so, for example, one state that I've worked in previously, in Kansas has the big first district, which is about 2/3 of the state geographically. It's the reddest, most conservative district, and that is one of those districts that is completely decided by the primaries. And when folks in that district haven't been happy with the people that they have had representing them, they have voted them out in the primary. And even though you might have a candidate that may be equally conservative, they might be a little bit more palatable to the base. But also in the general election, there's also a really similar situation that we're looking right now in my current home state of Virginia. We've got the 5th district primary going on. So I live in Northern Virginia, but the 5th district is kind of in the southern part of the state towards Lynchburg. And there, Congressman Bob Good, who is chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, is currently being primaried by State Senator John McGuire. And there's kind of a couple of reasons why that is. So first of all, and kind of first and foremost, the main thing that McGuire has been hitting Good on is the idea that Good actually endorsed DeSantis over Trump in the primary. But also, as Freedom Caucus chairman, some people believe that Good has been not good and actually very bad for governing. And that includes, even though he is House Freedom Caucus chairman, he's made deals that many people in his party and in his kind of region of the state believe that were too soft. And so they don't see themselves being too well represented by their representative.
What about voters who are independents because they don't feel like they're really represented by either party? What do you recommend if they want to get their voice heard? Do they need to just get off the fence and decide out of one of the major two parties, or should they be supporting a third independent party?
Well, the way that our democracy is structured now here in the States, where we do have the two major parties, at the end of the day, those independent voters do typically have to make a choice between the two major parties. And so I think if that choice comes, whether they make it in the primary or in the general, they are still typically choosing, what in their mind is probably kind of a lesser of two evils situation. Right.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. Thank you very much, Victoria Churchill. She's from Young Voices. And I appreciate you spending some time on the James Show, Victoria.
Thank you so much for having me. Hope to be back soon.
All right. When we come back, what do you think? Should we have open or closed primaries? I think you can make a pretty decent case for either one, and I'm not sure what the answer is. I'd like to hear from you. 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Hey, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. What do you think? Should we have closed primaries, open primaries, closed primaries? Keep the votes pure and just with the base. But they also exclude independent voters, and maybe you get a candidate that's too polarizing. I mean, which one works out better for you? What do you think? 800-288-9227. Let's go to Clark in Plano. You're next up on the James Show. What do you think, Clark?
Oh, keep them closed.
Why?
The way our systems work, the lesser of two evils is the general election. As far as the electability in November goes, that's what our system's all about. I don't think it's right for a bunch of Johnny-come-latelys and, more importantly, people who are purposely switching over to the other party to mess up the politics of that party and literally even sometimes even mess up the vote of somebody who's given money to the party before. So I don't think it'd be fair for Nikki Haley Democrat voters to go in to dilute somebody who's voted Republican for 30, 40 years.
Is there any concern for you, Clark and Plano, that you might be getting too polarizing of a candidate if you're not allowing more independent voices in there?
Let me put it this way. I've seen the Iraq. I'm not even 40 yet, and I've seen the Iraq War happen, and then I've seen all this other crazy stuff in my life. And I said, if you're independent, you think you're better than everybody else, and you sit on the fence, you'll be far right or far left in another 5 or 10 years. So I don't think that argument really holds much water.
Right. So I'm an independent, but I'm an independent. I see myself as far, far, far to the right of either one of the parties. In the fact that both of them want government to be way bigger than I think it should be. Both of them want to spend way more money than I think should be spent. They want to have more. I want to eliminate giant swaths of the federal government. I want to eliminate any social program at the federal level. You can still do them at the state level. I do not have a representative coming from either party. You both look like a bunch of arguing siblings to me. Y'all are so similar. I don't hate Democrats or Republicans. I see y'all almost as the same entity, nitpicking over some cultural issues.
Ron Paul or somebody else like that, and organize, give money, and change the party to the local level. And
so, how do I get represented? Because look, if the Republican Party or the Democrat Party put forward a candidate that wanted to shrink the federal government drastically, I would vote for him. I don't care if it's Team Red or Team Blue. We need to get this budget under control, and we need to get the size of government slashed by about 90%. But how do I get represented if we have closed primaries?
You could run, or you could or give money to somebody else who agrees with you.
Well, fat chance of me winning anything in an election, but I appreciate that, Clark. James in Rockwall, you're up next. What do you think? Closed primaries or open primaries? What's better?
I do believe that a closed primary system is better simply because, like you mentioned, potential, Democrats coming in, diluting the votes a little bit. However, I do have a solution for you for the independent voters.
Oh, good.
So, like in Texas, when you go to primary vote, like I already early voted, when I went in, you select which side you're on, Democrat or Republican. They hand you that specific ballot, and you go through and you select your people. Well, let's add a third option for an independent ballot. The independent ballot would have every Democrat and every Republican who's running for those specific places, and you could only vote for them one time. So Joe Biden, Nikki Haley, Donald Trump, they'd all be on the same ballot, but you can only vote for the person that you want. So if you like a Democratic person that's doing this side, vote for them. If you like their policies, if you like a Republican for this side, vote for them. The independents can have the choice of either one, and it doesn't dilute the Republican side or the Democratic side.
All right, first off, you get points for coming up with this system that I've never heard of before. Sean, you're going to give James from Rockwall 10 points for that one, so congratulations on that. However, I feel as an independent, you're still constraining me to the selections of the two parties, and one of the main complaints I have is that the American public doesn't really get a real choice. They get this narrow difference between the two parties that are hand-selecting almost their candidates. What do you say about that? I can't get a libertarian in there that way.
I would agree. The only problem is that the Libertarian Party and like the No Names Party and the constitutional parties, they don't have primaries. They don't have a specific primary that's either run by the state or the federal elections. If there was a Libertarian Party, then sure, they could have their own primary with their person that the independents could agree with. So until those third party people get I guess, the popularity or the money or whatever it takes to have their own primary, you're not going to see those third options on a primary ticket. But like you said, you would see them on the general election ticket where an independent person could vote for whoever they wanted with those specific people.
Yeah, libertarians, they do have primaries, but it's not rolled into the same elections that the Democrats and Republicans are in. So you're right. You're right. A lot of good points you made there, James. Thanks for calling. Other James, I should say.
Thank you.
Scott in Fort Worth, you're next up on the James Show. What do you think about the primary system, open or closed?
Oh, absolutely needs to be a closed primary. You know, and your last guest actually even proved the point. She quoted the statistic that the study she showed in the primary that only 80% of the people that voted in the Republican primary there intended to support the nominee. Well, that means 20% of the people are those Democrats who were trying to get the weaker candidate. You know, and I'd like to give you an example for this. Well, I love Donald Trump. In his first election cycle there, had there not been switch voters, I think the nominee would have been Ted Cruz. I also think if you look farther back, when it was Clinton versus Obama, Clinton would have been the nominee. I don't think Mitt Romney would have been the nominee either. It's these people that are voting in a party election that they're not a member of the party. They weren't invited. They're not a member of the party. They should have no say. No Democrat should have any say in what the election should be in the Republican nominee, just like no Republican should have any say on who the Democrat nominee should be.
But, you know, as an independent voter, that sounds like, well, you just don't want me in your party. You don't want to appeal to me. You're not even going to try to get my input on a candidate that I might want to vote for in the national election. And I know there's only about 3 or 4% of the voting public that's as obstinate as me about being an independent. But I guess you're not too worried about pushing us away. Because, I mean, the other side didn't do any better winning me over. So maybe you're right.
Well, the independent voter is not a member of the party. If they really want, they can join the party for this election cycle, and they can switch the next time if they want. And either way, think about what your last guest said. They quoted 80%. So that meant that 20% of the people were not planning on supporting the nominee.
Well, hang on now. You're
presidential cycle,
right.
20% is a swing vote that will change any election.
I'm sure a lot of them meant it that way, but some of them probably meant, well, I'm not guaranteed to support any candidate until I know who it is. You know, there's people who see that as a question of blind fealty to the party, and a lot of people sort of may have rejected the question based on that. But I'm not saying you're wrong, Scott, because I mean I'm an independent. I'm not here to do what's better for either one of the parties. But I appreciate you calling.
I'm definitely a Republican, but I tend to lean more libertarian in sense. You know, but you know, I want the most conservative, liberty-minded person that's out there.
Yeah.
You know, but even on the Libertarian Party, you got someone like Rand Paul, he's in the Republican Party, and he's very conservative.
I would vote for him.
Libertarian than anyone else, and his dad was the exact same thing. His dad was the Libertarian nominee and couldn't get voted and couldn't get any action, so he switched parties and joined the Republican Party. And
I hear you, Scott. I don't think we're ever going to win squat because I believe some things that are very unpopular with the general voting public. I want to privatize Social Security. I want to end all federal welfare. I want to get rid of Medicare and Medicaid. And who the heck's going to vote for me in that situation? So people do not tell me to run. When you people say, hey, maybe you should run for office. Yeah, well, I wouldn't get very far, and I know it. So what do you think? 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. If you're an independent, what are we supposed to do? 800-288-WBAP. It's the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. I'm not just saying this to suck up, but there are some really smart calls on hold. There have been really smart calls the last two segments on this topic. And because this isn't like an easy topic, like what do you think about a 4-day work week, or what do you think about turning right on red? But this is something that requires a little nuance, a little deep thought. It's not as simple as some of these other political topics we talk about where one side's like abortion's good, the other side's like abortion's bad. No, this is all gray area, and I'm trying to find some answers here, and you guys are taking it really serious, and I appreciate that. Let's go to Dave in Fort Worth. Now that I hyped it up, Dave, don't let me down.
No, I'm on board with the guy about having an independent primary. List all the players and let us choose from them.
Yeah, but so would all the candidates necessarily be either Democrat or Republican candidates as they exist now, or there would be other candidates that might get a chance in there? That was my only issue with that situation.
As long as they're registered to try to be a president or whatever, put them on the ballot.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the problem I have though. This is more with the two-party system rather than the open or closed primary. Is even if people do think like me, we don't get a chance for the rest of America to even voice that opinion with the way we have it set up now. Where's the candidate that you've been able to vote for in your entire life that wanted to actually make government smaller? Now, I don't mean make government smaller. When they got in office, they slashed giant chunks of it, and it ended up smaller when they left than it was when they got in. Have you had that chance in your life?
I mean you're on point there about that. That's something that has to be figured out. But if you make all the primaries closed, then if you're registered as an independent, that's what you get to go with. I get you. But, I see what you're saying, but the problem is, after this coming Super Tuesday, a lot of people aren't going to have a choice.
Yeah, but I mean, you still need to go vote for all the other things on the ticket, but that's a legit criticism as well. I'm still looking for answers. Thank you very much, Dave in Fort Worth. Let's go to Wayne and Wayne in Little Elm. You're next up on the James Show. Open or closed primaries, what do we do about the independents?
Well, here's the thing. You can't really fix all this in the current system or the bastardization. I hope I can say that.
Yes, you can.
Okay, good. You have to go back to basics. And I wrote a transcript. I've been reluctant to publish it, but it's called The Party's Over, Parties, as in political parties.
Okay.
This country was designed to have a House of Representatives who represent us in our district. Don't tell me what you're going to do for me. You work for us. You get one vote. Counts just as much, no more than mine does. And you've been delegated to go vote district, whatever it is, 214, whatever, pick a number, and say that, our district votes this. Whether I agree with it or not, if I'm the delegate, that's what I do. So if we can, why do we have two parties? We have 50 states. We have 430-something representatives, and they all just go one way or the other. We should have a blue state or red state. We should have the state of Texas.
Look, here,
Oklahoma, what have you.
I hear you, but let me go ahead and interject because I think I know where you're going on this one. But from the point of view of just statecraft, and when you take the party labels off of it, no one believes that government should be infinitely big and take all the resources that the country produces. No, I don't think there's anyone left on planet Earth that wants pure communism. Right, but what we have is one party that is growing government, and
you have to stop trying to fight it within that context. And I've done that. And listening to you has really kind of motivated me. You asked how some people tell you should run for office. Well, who's going to vote for you? I would if you were to tell me why I should and how you were actually going to go about it. You were going to give my voice, be heard in government in the way it's supposed to be. These are not my ideas. They're Thomas Jefferson. But you don't hear about them. Our children have been robbed of an education deliberately. I go into how this all began under Jimmy Carter, and they got the DEA and the EPA. That just goes around Congress. You hear about this stuff on talk radio all the time. I'm a little upset that I'm the only one who's put it all together. There's a formula. It's been around for 250 years, pal. How to fix all this and get away from this. Just no one knows. Young people are not stupid. They're just totally oblivious, uninformed. I speak to them all the time, and when I explain to them, don't take my word for this. Look it up.
Well, listen, the reason I think I would never win an election is not because my ideas are bad or not because of my system of governance isn't superior to what we have now. But when you have an entire population that has been born into this system, it's kind of like the Matrix. They're so inured, they're so dependent on the system, they will fight to protect it. And what we have is a lot of people who are scared of freedom. That scares them. The idea that if something goes wrong, no one's going to help them with their medical bills or help them pay for college or help their kids go to school or Section 8 housing.
For that too. I mean, it's called capitalism. They want equal everything.
Well,
So,
you and I know that.
But,
You and I know that, but we are in the vast minority, Wayne. We are in the. We have a lot of work to do.
perhaps if we said, well, let's do the work, for one thing. But what if we explain to someone, a flat tax? You always want to hear that the wealthy need to pay their fair share. Okay, great. If you make 15 cents goes to out of every dollar, whatever the number is, that fixes this. No more IRS. Why do we pay taxes? Have to file to get some back. It's preposterous.
Yeah, well,
money that goes in goes to the general fund. You cannot spend more money than you take in every year. One bill, one law. Period. You want to pass 1,300 laws today, Congress? Then go ahead, go to work. Pass 1,300 bills, and you go for 4 years. You can't run again. You can't. That's it. It's public service. You get the GI Bill when you leave. You get paid $75,000 a year, and
I hear
you're
you.
not making any more money than that. This can all happen, and it can happen within a couple election cycles. And how do you get to the presidency? Well, you have to have enough independents representing you and your district the way they're supposed to finally change the election laws for one election and make it where, this can happen.
Well,
there are no political parties.
Here's what you can do. You can support The James Show and make sure as many people as possible listen to it. Say, hey, there's this crazy guy who wants to do all these weird things that no one else is talking about. He wants to annex parts of Canada. Why did we stop adding states all through American history until, 1959? We were just regularly, let's add this state. Let's add Idaho. Let's add Hawaii. Let's add Alaska. And then we stop. I want British Columbia, and then we'll work our way east on Canada. We'll annex Alberta. We'll get the Yukon. Northwest Territories should be an easy. We could just occupy that with our military, no problem. Then we'll get Saskatchewan. We'll just move our way east. We'll let them have the little French part on their own. We won't annex that. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about getting rid of the gun database. We don't talk about privatizing Social Security. We don't talk about eliminating the Department of Education or any of that anymore. I am not represented. So whenever I gripe about the parties, I'm not being a butthead, and I'm not some fire-breathing liberal or conservative. I'm nothing. I am absolutely unrepresented, floating on an island. And I don't know. I'm not too concerned about the primary system because I don't want to vote for either one of y'all. Man, this is The James Show on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3.